What's next for Terence Crawford? After dethroning the long-standing super middleweight face of boxing champion Saul Canelo Alvarez, Terence Bud Crawford is now the guy. He's boxing's GOAT right now. He is the man who beat the man. Terence Crawford is the 168 king. He has options though, because Terence is not a natural super middleweight. 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗢𝗪𝗓 previously showed interest in coming down to challenge Canelo when he was undisputed after beating Canelo at 175. Technically the undisputed light heavyweight champ right now. It would be a bit of a strange matchup because the size would just be that much more again. If he could boil himself to get down, would still be quite a handful, being that he has rhythm and higher volume output similar to Terence and good all-round solid IQ and skills. Now we have another mega fight that just had a press conference last week. Eubank Jr. versus Benn, the rematch happening in November in Tottenham in London. The last fight earlier in the year was the fight of the year in UK, and on the boxing roster in general is a high noteworthy fight just due to the legacy of the families and the caliber of the exchanges in the kind of trench warfare that is Eubank Benn. Now you might say neither are on Terence's level, and a quick caveat, Eubank Jr. is currently being trained by Terence Crawford's coach, Brian McIntyre. So Terence Crawford's head coach is now Eubank's head coach heading into the rematch of Benn. So that probably ends that before it starts. However, after a close and competitive first fight, if Benn was to come out on top victorious versus Eubank Jr., who knows? He's not done anything near what Terence has done accolade-wise. But boxing's a funny game, and 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪𝗓 likes the popcorn factor. So you never know. Watch out for that one. Could entertain a 𝗙𝗪𝗟𝗪𝗓 at 160. Crawford shooed it out when it was mentioned at the post-fight presser last week about fighting him at 154. I don't think Crawford has any hunger to go down 2 weights now that he's touching 38 years old and he's been allowed to bulk up, to not cut weight for his most recent fight. Don't be surprised if Crawford doesn't go any lower than 160. Personally, I don't think he's big enough to compete against the younger, bigger guys moving forward at 168. Stellar performance against Canelo, but also against a specific style that throws 1 and 2 punches. Anyone that was big, like a Bivol Benavidez coming down, who throws combinations and punches in bunches, could be a trickier out for Terence. A bit like Madrimov's footwork and timing was tricky even at 154. Could 𝗙𝗪𝗟𝗪𝗓𝗪𝗓, the exciting guy who had a war with Madrimov earlier in the year in February, could his name be thrown in at 160? He's got the right size frame. He's about the same size as Terence. He's an exciting name with Golden Boy. I see any of Benn, 𝗙𝗪𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗓, or 𝗙𝗪𝗟𝗡𝗔, 3 different styles there. I see any of those making a good matchup for Terence at 160. Outside of the names mentioned or Benavidez coming back down, I don't really see the natural, obvious next pick for Crawford. He's not going to want to fight Canelo in a rematch because the first fight was just too conclusive. Outside of the serious realms of boxing, we then start talking into fantasy land of people like Jake Paul and stuff, and it just doesn't feel right even mentioning it. Yeah, I don't really see Terence fighting anybody for the sake of it. He wants money, he wants legacy, and he's probably got 2 or 3 maximum fights left. So Hamza Shiraz at 160, his stock is high after beating Edgar Berlanga in America. Turkey is a big fan of Hamza. Turkey's a big fan and advocate of Terence. But Terence is king of the mountain right now. So he can literally call the shots like Canelo previously. Other notable mentions, even though they're very inactive and probably don't deserve it, Jermell Charlo at 160 if he was to come up, even though he was quite abysmal, pathetic against Canelo, really just surviving in there. Crawford showed us how it's done when you move up. Big up Terence Crawford. This is the big question mark in the game. Canelo rematch? No. Bivol boiling down to 168? Interesting. Benavidez? Surely not. Too big, and he's got to fight Anthony Yarde, and that's not a given. Benn, if he was to knock out Eubank, he could call out Terence. You're stable, mate. I'll fight you at 160.